What's going on, world? It's your boy Gemini Brown here, back with another episode of Nalo Kicking Knowledge. Today, we're going to take a look back at Saturn and Capricorn and preview Saturn and Aquarius and kind of just have like a final recap, perspective, and look going forward. So, let's get into it. Now, since 2017 till now, the end of 2021, Saturn has been within its own sign of Capricorn. Saturn, of course, is discipline, hard work, restriction, feelings of limitation. And one of the coolest things about my journey and working with transits in general has been observing Saturn transits. From what I gather so far, at the beginning of these transits, the area of where Saturn is transiting, it's crazy. Saturn throws a haymaker at you and normally catches you off guard. Now it's a 2-year transit and it has its retrograde periods. And that's another portion of dealing with Saturn, taking that retrograde period and kind of allowing things to reveal itself. Okay. So then at the later degrees, at the end of the transit, the perspective, the lesson is learned regarding this area of life. Ultimately, you take more responsibility within this area. And if there was a real focused goal, more than likely that thing gets granted or it manifests in some material, tangible form. Okay? Then you have Capricorn, which is Saturn's sign, which is similar. It is the ruler of the original 10th house of career, public standing, authority. That's one of the key things that Capricorn represents in this life, in this world. It is government. And when you put Saturn into Capricorn, you have an authority. You have someone who governs or makes sure, things are followed through. So over these last few years, we've had the ultimate energy of the taskmaster. In whichever area of life this transit occurred, Saturn has forced you to really take pride or responsibility within this area and to literally work towards improving it. Nothing within the area of Capricorn over this time has come easy. And whatever has come with a lesson. Okay? So what I really want you guys to do, first and foremost, at the personal level, just look back. Who were you before 2017? Right? And overall, how I like to look at it, 2012 really was significant. It was a change of the guard, similar to something that we're going to go through in a few days with this solstice. Right? So you can look at your journey from 2012 and then look at it from like 2012 to 2017 and from 2017 to now. Right? Where have you created more boundaries within your life? Where have you assumed more responsibility? All right? In a personal sense, as myself as an example, this has been in my 5th house. My 5th house of creativity, individuality, children. Within this time, I had my first kid. It's been the biggest responsibility of my life. And it's really colored. And then, so here's the thing. Wherever that responsibilities come, it's forced you to create, like I said, a boundary or a routine, right? Something where you're giving energy and effort. And it's going to manifest in some type of way, okay? Through growth, through expansion, the same thing I just said, through growth, through the consistency, right? You learn what it takes to manifest. So I feel like going forward after these 2 years, understanding how to get what we want out of life should be a lot easier. I will probably do this in a separate video because it calls for its own attention, but I'll mention it here. Lately, I've just really, it's one of those things you learn on your spiritual journey, especially learn about the occult and manifestation. But yo, you can't get without giving. Everything weighs itself. It balances. Hence, Saturn deals with manifestation and is exalted in Libra. The best manifestations come when you don't really have to. You're always going to have to sacrifice, but not have to sacrifice much, right? But that whole thing is a thing, okay? So I think I'm going to allow that to lead me into my next perspective about just looking at Saturn and Capricorn collectively. But real quick, so let's just go through, all right? And look at certain perspectives going forward through the houses real quick. I don't want it just to drag out because I know you guys like these perspectives. So the perspective with Saturn, and I'm going to tie this into Aquarius. So boom, remember, this is continuation. I've learned something in this house. I'm about to take what I learned and build off of it in the next house with Aquarius. And then you think about everything that Aquarius deals with. All right. So for the first house, after this transit, you should have learned something about your motivations in life. Okay. You either had a clear direction these last couple years. You definitely have felt like life has thrown you like a monkey wrench. Many of you could have been dealing with, physical ailments, right? Others of you could have just been experiencing real hardcore limitations within some area of life. But then for the others, but at the end of it, there should emerge with a direction of where you want to go and how you need to adapt yourself to the ever-changing world. Wherever you have felt most limited in regards to your personality, going forward, you need to place more value upon that. So if you have dealt with physical ailments or feeling like you have can't like express your authority in certain situations or in authority through yourself or personality, going forward, you need to place greater emphasis on your health, greater value on speaking up for yourself or being heard within partnerships, all of that. Okay, so a strengthening of the partnership leading to more self-value overall that you'll be working on within Aquarius. Coming out of the second house into the third house, we have second house. You have learned lessons about having to really be independent, tighten up with your money. What I've seen, a lot of you are having your first, especially if the people with second house, I've been privileged to work with a lot of people with second house Saturn returns. Okay, a lot they really matured in the sense of assuming responsibility in a financial sense, whether it be getting their own place or a major purchase, something of that sort. Okay, getting their first big job, independence, right? There's a greater understanding around money and where you want to go. And the key now is to build in the sense of your skills and hobbies. So with now Saturn transiting your third house, you're going to get prepped up on how to sell yourself or find a direction of how to kind of be an entrepreneur or expanding your skill set in a certain sense. All right. So as we go to the third house, this is what the third house has been about. It's been about learning. Many of you have probably really come into the knowledge of astrology, other occult things within this transit, and you've had to get serious to really apply it within your mind and start to live by it. Right now in the third house, you want to take these skills that you learn and develop and allow it to really provide you with a sense of security. And once again, a sense of like, okay, this is how I want to live my life. And then the new focus in the fourth house is going to be on finding your tribe or filling that home within a particular realm of life or circle group. Okay. If Saturn's been transiting your fourth, Many of you might have relocated, expanded somewhere in a new direction, experienced things like childhood, motherhood, or, grown in the family since. Many others could have really left their families or cleared up certain ties. But overall, going forward, you just need to take that emotional resilience that you've experienced. In the sense of you, the worst, you've probably experienced the worst already. All right. So now you're going to focus on you. Okay. You've dealt with the emotional stuff. Now you get to focus on the 5th house and all of that. My Virgo risings, people with Saturn who's been transiting your 5th, going forward, we need to take everything that we learned about how to manifest in this current day modern reality, following the rules, doing what we do, right? Blended in, but still observing that individuality. We got to take that and really, continue to just build, and the collective will embrace that. And, the direction will be there. There's going to be, a real need to tighten up on that diet now in that 6th house, right? Dealing with things more holistic, putting into practice, more new age teachings and all of that on an everyday basis. But yeah, it moves forward, right? So then for my 6th house people, you've been taught lessons on how to be grounded, right? There's some area of life that really needed to be improved and practicalized. And now whatever house or whatever that's connected to, you're going to now have partnerships that support your further expansion, and particularly in terms of career. So it's going to be a build on those Capricorn themes, but now involving, your partnerships. All right. People with Saturn who's been transiting the 7th, now with it going into the 8th, which you've definitely been taught lessons regarding balance in relationships and authority. And for the collective themes I'm going to talk about in a few, I think that, you guys really have felt that, probably feeling taken advantage or powerless in certain situations, or needing to deal with karmic relationships and put it in the correct perspective. Okay. But going forward now, your ability to shed that baggage is going to help trigger transformation. Okay. And this transformation is going to further deal with how you relate towards others. Or now it's going to be a matter of relating through common interests and the need to be more of your true self. All right. 8th house Saturn people in Aquarius. This is going to be a really interesting transit for you guys. For the people who've just experienced this within Capricorn, it's probably been really intense, and it's probably been really dry, or period, depending on how other stuff in your chart has played out. You've probably felt like, damn, can I get a little bump and grind? Can, like in the intimate department, Saturn might have really restricted that in order for you to focus on something else. Okay. So first and foremost, you're going to be feeling revitalized in the sense of just like, one thing that restriction does, creates more independence. It creates more focus on a particular thing. Now that's what you're going to focus on in the 9th. So here in the 8th house, for those coming in, like I said, with Aquarius, now the key is time to, like I said, to find that tribe through common interests. Okay. Speak more of your beliefs. Yeah. Be a little bit more expressive and all of that. You could now, you're where the 8th house Capricorn people felt like just very limited there. Yours could just be detached. So a lot of friends with benefits type thing, not really taking relationships too serious. Okay. Okay. So let's go on to Saturn in the ninth. So for Capricorn, like I said, you're another one where you've come into this spiritual knowledge over this time, and you really needed to implement it into your life securely. So then now, and you've also probably felt limited in the sense of your surroundings. And if you weren't able to really travel and expand, you'll really want to do that now. Okay, but you're living your life in some type of way that is giving you more purpose and direction now, which is going to help you in the 10th house with Aquarius. So for people with Saturn now going into the 9th house, this is going to be one where it's going to be a lot of activity. You're going to really, I see this as, especially if you got other 11th house influence, being very extroverted, seeking out a lot of social interaction, really approaching life from a spontaneous kind of way, and lots of influence. Especially the more you're open towards growth and stuff, the more you're going to be able to attract. Okay, so Saturn for the last couple years being a Capricorn in the 10th house, what I've seen has been a wide range of results with this particular transit. People have had ambitions, but have not necessarily had the willpower to go after it. And towards the end, like I said, they kind of find how to do that. A lot of like people who may have been to college didn't really, find their niche, exploring all of that. But nonetheless, Saturn has taught you a little bit more about what you want and how to go about that. And there's probably some type of sacrifice required regarding relationships and all of that. So now going forward, it's almost like to improve upon the transit, you need to just really be open towards the group rather than your own interests, if that makes sense. So be open to influence, but at the same time, it's like rather than trying to make intimate connections, make networking connections. Okay. Continue to adopt a serious approach, but more with more social engagement. Okay. Saturn and Aquarius in the 10th house. If you have a lot of supporting aspects, particularly with like the North Node being in Gemini and things like this, I feel like you guys can really thrive at this time, especially if like if you have a strong natal 9th house and you got a direction. You can really thrive during this time of being like an influencer in some type of way. Your career is just a very open market and time for that. So yeah, keep that in mind. Where you could slip is you could limit yourself. This is kind of going to play in for Capricorn in the 11th, and then like Saturn Aquarius in the 10th. There's feelings of inadequacy around social groups. That's how Saturn could come out, limiting, feeling like I don't belong, or not making enough effort to connect with others. All right. So then, like I said, we look at Saturn, which has been in the 11th, now going into Aquarius in the 12th. So for people who've had this particular transit, you've also been very open towards spirituality, learning. You probably, what I've seen is a lot of isolation. So it's like if Saturn was in your 11th and now it's going into your 12th, you're going to expand upon being alone or being in hermit mode. Okay. It's a time where you're growing. You got to go within to grow. But at the same time, you're going to connect with your 11th house through your growth. So just like how, through learning astrology, you find different astrologers and you find different healers, kind of like that. So a lot more recluse, not a lot of necessarily networking going on there. So we get to finally the 12th house. So this is Capricorn and Aquarius now. So for those of you with this emerging to your first, it's been rough. It's been rough because you've also had Pluto here, and then this year you had Jupiter here, which lightened the load. But for the 12th house people, this has been an extended transit, right? And now everything, literally, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It is about applying what has been learned. And there's a thing here. There's this thing here, particularly if you have Cancer energy opposing this Capricorn 12th house. You gotta let the past go. A lot of the North Node transiting Capricorn for you in particular was about letting the past be the past and accepting whatever, trauma or sorrow has occurred. And then therefore going forward, you emerge stronger within your sense of self and just knowing yourself better. That's what the 12th house teaches you. But it's imperative that you accept whatever sorrow is in that 12th house and just not let it get to you, But for those of you who are going to be having this 12th house Aquarius transit, because this is Aquarius and it's erratic, you gotta be careful. Say you have like 8th house energy, whether by transit, natal, solar return, sudden losses or things can occur here, right? So say this was involving a planet like Taurus and your Uranus, Saturn is going to square that Uranus. That could result in something like some type of financial losses or having a misplaced trust within somebody. So there's the 12th house. There's a sudden chance of things just kind of you losing in a particular type of way. This could be energy. This could be friends. All right. But overall, there's a feeling of being isolated or kind of you gain if the more you're willing to embrace the eccentricness of where your 12th house leads you, the happier you'll be. Or it's like you're set to discover part of yourself, and it's going to lead to greater self-mastery, but it's going to come through needing to embrace it. But Saturn might work in a way where at first you're very self-conscious of this area, but embracing is key to liberation here. All right. So I'm going to do another part of this. I just went through that. I'm going to take a collective look back at things. So yeah, this is basically a look back at Saturn in Capricorn, Saturn and Aquarius through houses. Chime in. Let me know what you think. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, you can do so now. Until next time, peace.